Welcome back to episode 9 now of Steeler Thoughts and Chief Feelings. Thanks for coming back. Um, I am your co-host, Chris Dorst. I'm the philosopher and Steelers fan in this group.
And I'm your other co-host, Ajay Nair. I'm the psychiatrist and the Chiefs fan in this group. Thanks, for all of you that are following along. You can get our podcast, the Steeler Thoughts Chief Feelings podcast, anywhere you download podcasts. We're also up on YouTube. We try to release shorts almost every day. We are on Twitter at Thoughts14820. We are on Instagram at STCF715, and we're on TikTok at STCF8. So appreciate all of you that follow along.
Yeah, and thanks for commenting and engaging. Get some nice comments every once in a while that are at least amusing to us. So
Yeah, they do
we
make us
appreciate
laugh.
that. Yeah.
All right. So on today's episode, we are going to start things off with the state of the Steelers. So free agency is kind of moving at a snail's pace at this point. I feel like we're in a little bit of a content lull. So I thought I would ask a little bit about some things that are more generally Steelers related. Well, I guess the first question I can ask is somewhat topical because I saw some posting online about Steelers fans being very passionate about wanting the yellow end zones to come back. And I wanted your thoughts on, the three Steeler end zones that I'm familiar with are like the no paint with just like Pittsburgh or Steelers in there, then the yellow end zones with Pittsburgh or Steelers painted in black, or the like end zones that are like the Notre Dame end zones that just have no logo and just have like the slanted, which I think they were doing because Pitt shares the stadium as well. But just aesthetically, what would you prefer out of the options, or if there are more end zone options that I'm not aware of?
Yeah. So I think the default for a while now has been one where it was Pittsburgh painted, and then one where it was just the slants, because that
Oh,
accommodates both the Steelers and the Pittsburgh Panthers because they play at that stadium. Um, maybe maybe I'm old fashioned and I don't remember that we've updated this recently, but that's my memory. Like that's what I would expect to find, but maybe I just don't pay enough attention. Um, but I guess if I don't pay enough attention, I kind of don't really care what the color of the end zone is. I mean, the slants are a little like kind of idiosyncratic, and I kind of like that. So kind of yeah, maybe I'm fine. I'm fine. I like the slants. That's like if that's the Notre Dame style, then yeah, great. I like the Notre Dame style. We can do slants in both end zones for all I care. Yeah.
and on that note, what do you think? I was going through all the different like Steelers uniform options. What is your favorite one? Like if there was a game to be played and you got to pick the uniforms, important game, what would you choose?
I I mean I like the simple black and the sort of the modern yellow, the one that's maybe it's just because what I'm used to now, right? And I like feel an attachment to the way the team looks now. But the black tops and the yellow pants, not like the shiny yellow as they used to be. Although we were better back then, so maybe maybe I should go back. Um, so I think that would be it. I don't know about I do like the block letters, which we don't, or the block numbers. It'd be weird if we had letters on our. Um, anyway, uh, yeah, I guess I like the block ones, but those are old fashioned. We've been using the rounded ones for a while now, and I guess I'm kind of getting used to those as well. Um, I definitely would not pick the bumblebees, right? Those ones. Although Ben had one of those great games in the bumblebee uniform, so I don't know. I mean, those.
That's actually what prompted this question for me. Is I was watching the highlights of the six touchdown game against the Colts, and I was like, "Oh, he wore the bumblebees for that."
Yeah, interesting choice. I went back and watched those too. I can't remember if it was this week or last week, but after we discussed it, I thought, it's probably time. Um, my yearly tradition, but um, Yeah, no, I think there's just the black and yellow classic uniforms with either numbering style, I guess. I would be, that's what that's what I most I think associate with us, and so that's what I'm most excited by. Um,
So
it's
just
like
so I'm Oh, I was just gonna say, just so I'm clear on the options. So these are the options I had in my head. I'm sure I'm missing some, but we've got the bumblebees, which had the like they have like numbers with like white block around them, and then like a black and yellow bumblebee pattern, and I think they're tan pants, right?
yep, tan
Um,
pants.
and then there's like we talked about the standard uniform with the curved letters in white, right? It's a black uniform, yellow pants. The away is reverse on the uniform, white with black lettering, still yellow pants. Then I remember the black on black with yellow block numbers. That's like an alternate
Oh yeah,
uniform.
right. Yeah, I
Like
forgot we wore those to be honest.
and I
We
feel
have
like
done those a number of times.
sometimes you do that one with a yellow helmet and sometimes with a black helmet, I think.
I can picture it definitely with a yellow helmet. I'm not sure if I can remember it with a black helmet. That would be kind of
Well,
nice. I like all black uniforms in general, just because like we mean business. But and the Ravens are always scary when they wear they're all black. I mean, they're always scary, but they're particularly scary when they wear all black uniforms somehow. Um, yeah, yeah, there is something to the all black, but it doesn't like get my blood pumping, get me excited the way that like the black and yellow ones do. Uh, it's like the kind of thing where it's like a conditioned response at this point, right? It's like a Pavlov's dog or something. Because I mean, people always rank the Steelers uniforms as like high on the best uniforms in football, but I cannot be objective about it, right? Like I'm sure if they were like green and red, I would still like them, right? They would still get me excited. Maybe not quite as excited, but I don't know how to evaluate that.
and it's interesting to me because I would agree that I think I mean, first of all, like you talked about with the black uniform, like black is just a good color to be look imposing in, and I feel like black and yellow go together really well. But I do feel like there's something I kind of, even just the logo on one side of the helmet and not on the other. Uh, and it does feel very traditional, which is so interesting to me because, like, coming from the Chiefs fan perspective, where the Chiefs have basically not ever changed their uniforms. Like, the only thing we've ever done is like we have red pants and white pants, and sometimes like we don't wear the red pants ever, and sometimes we bring them back. Like, but it is interesting to me that the Steelers went from the block letters to the curved letters. It's kind of a bold move for such a traditional franchise.
Yeah, I wonder what was behind that because I think they've been wearing basically since I've been paying attention to them, they've been wearing the curved ones. But but everyone was always complained and always excited when they wear the block ones, and I can definitely see it's something. I don't know. I mean, I don't know how to describe aesthetic taste very well, but there is something nice about the the block. It's a little bit more imposing. Um,
Yeah, and I'm sure for people that have been like, that are older than us, it harkens back to the 70s and like those teams. I'm trying to,
yeah,
because I think the only change in the Chiefs uniform is like the kind of the style of the numbering, like kind of changed just with like an outline or something. But I think it's more just like when, different companies like update, like, Nike did the uniform a little different than Reebok did before. And I don't actually know. I remember Puma used to do the Chiefs uniforms before that. And like maybe Wilson did at one point too. So like, I think the changes are more that rather than like any redesign. I don't know that there's been like a big redesign of the Chiefs uniform. Not that
do
I'm
they
aware
have
of.
the on the numbers? Do they have like a yellow kind of outline to the numbers now, or has that
I
always been the
think
case?
no, it definitely wasn't in like the 60s and 70s. And I don't know if that was like a design choice by the manufacturer or if that was the team making a change. I'm not sure.
Yeah, yeah, that's it. It's weird because if you had asked me that, I guess if I were drawing the Chiefs uniform, I don't think I would have put that yellow outline in. But now that you mentioned having an outline on the blocks, I can, yeah, yeah, that's right. I don't know. There's a lot of details to these things that like you don't really pay attention to, and then you realize you know them somehow. Like, our numbers go on the helmets, they go in the middle on the stripe as opposed to like on the side. If you have a single digit, it goes on the. It's like these weird like idiosyncrasies like that you realize that you know just because you've watched so much, but and then something looks slightly off if you see it and it's not right. So
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyway.
Um, all right. Well, let me go to my next question, which is that uh, Lamar Jackson is 1-3 against the Steelers. Apparently, now he technically like showed up in another game against the Steelers to throw one pass for 12 yards, but I'm not going to count that. Um, in his games, he's had thrown 4 touchdowns. In 4 games, he's thrown 4 touchdowns, 7 picks, and had a rating of 66. So, what do you feel like for such a successful quarterback? He's won 2 MVPs. Why are the Steelers so successful against him defensively? What is their strategy, and what do you think works?
Yeah, I don't know, but we definitely have figured it. At least it seems like we figured him out, right? I mean, I think it's probably a combination of sort of keeping our pass rush disciplined so we don't over pursue and give them big lanes to run around out of the pocket. We do a good job. We usually get a good number of sacks when we play them. Maybe the pass rush gets like extra amped because we're playing the Ravens or something like that. Mike Tomlin always talks about it being Ravens week, and how everyone gets excited for that in the building. Um, but somehow, yeah, we have really contained them, and I don't. It's to the point now where you like I kind of just expect it, and you shouldn't expect that probably, right? Because sooner or later he's going to just like destroy us, as he does a lot of teams. But yeah, when we play them, I don't get, I know it's going to be like a tense, tense close game usually, but I don't get super worried about him just lighting us up, because for some reason or other we know what we're doing against him, and I wish we did that against other quarterbacks more often. But yeah, um, I don't know. I mean, the Chiefs have had pretty good success against him recently too, especially like in the AFC Championship. I don't know if you have thoughts on what they did there, because maybe we're doing similar things when we play them.
Well, yeah, so if in my memory, I think we've played him 4 times, and the defense played really well against him 3 times. The fourth one was the one I went to, of course. And I think we really ran into problems because we just couldn't stop the run game. I don't know that he threw against us in a way that was really problematic, but they just ran all over us. And then, even then, we were up I think we were up, was it 11 twice in the fourth, got to the fourth quarter, and we were up 2 scores for a lot of that game, and just blew it at the end. Even then, we were still like driving for the game winning field goal, and then Clyde Edwards-Helaire fumbled in field goal range, and we lost the ball, and they ran out the clock. So anyway,
Is that the one in Baltimore like a
it
couple
was
seasons
in
ago?
Baltimore. Yeah, the 2021 season in Baltimore, week 2. I was there. It was
Hmm.
not fun. Walking out of a stadium
Yeah.
like that, that's like, it was a Sunday night football game too. So it was like a night game in the stadium. Ravens fans are all going crazy. They were like not happy most of the game because we're winning most of the game, and then they come back and win. And I just walk out of that stadium with all those people. It was not that fun. Um, but
This
what I,
relates to one of my questions I was going to ask you, namely, maybe okay, I'll shelve it for now. But yeah, I was going to ask you about like, the least favorite Chiefs game you've ever been to. Um,
we got lots of candidates there. Actually, I know what I'm going to say to that one.
I
But
think I might know. But, yeah.
uh, what we've done with him, I feel like you're right. You're right in that. I think this chief strategy has been very clearly to contain him in the pocket. They're not trying really hard not to over pursue. I think we talked on a previous podcast about a time when like Chris Jones like beat the left tackle around the corner, and then instead of pursuing, Jackson just stayed, like came back and let the left tackle block him again, essentially just to maintain his rush lane. And I do think that, you know, we've only played him with Steve Spagnuolo, and Steve Spagnuolo is really crazy with his coverages. Like, he will, and that was highlighted even more this year. I think the only year he has called basic coverages was last year because we had such a young secondary, and now all those guys were kind of ready for his bananas stuff this year. And I think that's been the combination, is just throw a bunch at him. And somehow in 3 of the 4 games we've been able to like relatively contain the run. I think that's when the game got away from us against Lamar, is when they could run the ball like crazy, and then we just couldn't do anything.
Mm, yeah. Yeah, I think right. I think you're right. I think that seems to be the game plan, right? Like keep him contained in the pocket, and then if you can, do some fancy stuff in the secondary and make him really think about it in a way that he's not used to doing. Because I think when he's at his best, it's when he's moving around, and him moving can move other people. Like will move the defense with him, and he knows like if I move over there, that's going to open this part of the field, and I can get a dart in there, right? Like
Yeah.
I think that's what he knows how to do really well. And you can see that even when he's like when he's running, it seems like he's got a really good sense of like if I go here, that's going to pull these people there, and then I can juke this way. Or he seems to be really good in the open field and knowing who's going to move when he moves, basically.
Yeah.
And if he can't do that, if he can't move and pull people, then a big part of his game is missing. Maybe that's the right thing to
Yeah.
say here.
And the other thing that has been consistent every time we've played him is we have gotten out to a 2 possession lead. Even the game we lost, like we really seem to. I mean, not that of course everyone wants to do that in every game, but it seems to be especially a priority when we play the Ravens, that we can't fall behind. We got to start fast and get up early.
So they can't lean on their run game. Yeah, we don't do that. We let them get ahead, but somehow we. I mean, those. Yeah, it wasn't like a sure thing that we were going to win. I don't think any of those times we beat him. But we somehow pulled it out. Yeah, I remember some of them was like, "There's no way we should have won that game." Actually, in fact, at least 2 of those games, I think we did not deserve to win. But we somehow did. So maybe the stats a bit misleading there.
And then finally, the last question about the Steelers. If you could choose retroactively to have been in the building for one Steelers game that you didn't attend, what game would you choose?
Yeah, I think I have an answer to this. Although, as you were just asking me, I'm now hesitating because I do have a good memory of the actual experience of this, and if I were in the building, I wouldn't have that memory. So I don't know. But in the 2008 AFC Championship against the Ravens, we the one where we sealed it with the Troy Polamalu pick six of
Oh yeah.
Flacco to go to the Super Bowl. I think people still say that's the loudest they've heard Heinz Field, and that was one of the most sort of elating football is elating of the right word here. It's one of the best football feelings I can remember having. Right, like that that pick six, that whole play, really. And I remember watching it. I was downstairs in the basement at our house in Missouri, and I saw Palomo pick it, and then I heard my mom upstairs just shouting like, "Go, go, go, go!" That's the memory that I kind of don't want to lose. So if I were at the game, I would. I mean, I'm sure I would have other very good memories. But there's something deeply personal about that memory, which is nice. So I don't know. I mean, I think it would be that game, but Super Bowl after that one would have been nice too, to see that game-winning drive and
Oh yeah.
Antonio Holmes touchdown. I think those 2 games, to have those both in the same season back to back on those stages, is just like it's gonna be hard to top. So it would be one of those.
Yeah, that was. I remember in the AFC Championship game being like certain that the game was going to end with a Palomalu pick. And I remember after that, I was like, man, maybe I really understand football. And then I wasn't able to predict anything for like 5 years. But I remember at that point being like, this game is going to end with a Palomalu pick. Like, he's going to throw a pick. I didn't know that it was going to go back for a touchdown, but I just remember being certain. That
Yeah, and then I
was, yeah.
think The was it? But am I right that in the Super Bowl we were on the phone? I think.
Yeah, we were on the
Uh,
phone during this Antonio Holmes play. Yeah,
yeah, and you had like it was weird because I guess the television in Missouri was delayed enough that I heard the screaming on the phone on your end before because you were in Pittsburgh at the time. I
yeah.
heard I heard all the excitement there, and then I saw it happen, and so I couldn't tell like what the excitement was about. Right? I didn't even know if it was like good or bad. Um, but but I remember like something's happening, and then I saw it happen.
Yeah, it was. I actually watched it in an auditorium on the Carnegie Mellon campus. So it was like a packed auditorium, a bunch of people watching the game, and on the big screen they threw that. That is still probably the like biggest like non-Chiefs moment. Like that was crazy. Like it was pandemonium in in that room when he caught that pass.
Yeah, that's a good question. At some point, I might ask you what's like the best non-Chiefs moment, or some of the best non-Chiefs moments in your football watching. Another one
Yeah.
that stands out to me is the 2007 Super Bowl, Giants and
Oh yeah.
Patriots. We watched that one together too,
Yeah.
and I was thrilled at the way that ended. Although I think one of our friends there was a Patriots fan at the time, and I did feel a little bad, but
Yeah.
not that bad.
Yeah, that was. I feel like that was part of the boost with the Steelers Super Bowl. Is we had like back to back crazy Super Bowls that like ended like they did. Like it was, and kind of the reverse in that because I think the Giants scored with like 30 some odd seconds. Oh, or actually, I think
Yeah,
both teams scored with like 30 some odd seconds to win the game. Right, both years. I think that's right.
Steelers had the play started with 43 seconds to go.
Oh.
I remember because I remember I don't remember which announcer, but some announcers saying 43 seconds to go. Yeah, and the Giants scored. Yeah, it was really.
It was
It
really
might have
late,
been less.
also. Yeah.
Yeah, and then yeah, on that a couple Hail Mary passes there that I think one of them they almost got right
Yeah, I think
to
he
Randy
tried
Moss.
to throw into Moss. Yeah, that was actually like a pretty good pass. uh,
Yeah,
and I don't the Hail Mary I actually remember more from the Patriots was in the 2011 Super Bowl. I think he threw one to Gronk that was like really like Gronk dove for it and it was really close. I
I
remember.
don't remember that at all.
Yeah, I think that's right. That there was well, definitely because Gronk wasn't there in the 2007 Super Bowl. But 2007, he definitely threw onto Moss that I just remember being good, but I don't have a like a visual memory of the play. Um,
Yeah,
yeah, some crazy time because like we just had that weird stretch where Super Bowls were really good because they weren't always good. Like going before, like there were a lot of games that were not very good. It's a more recent trend that Super Bowls have been exciting.
yeah. I mean, we've had some really good ones recently too, right? I mean,
Yeah.
maybe I'm sure you think they've been good, at
Oh
least
yeah,
most
I
of them.
have
Uh,
thoroughly enjoyed them. But yeah, I mean, yeah, the Chiefs have not had a non-exciting Super Bowl win at all. I think everyone would agree that the 2020 Super Bowl wasn't a good game. I would have more reason than most to think so. But
yeah, yeah. Um, Yeah, it's definitely great when the Super Bowl is also a good game, right? Because when you win it and it's like 21-10 over the Seahawks and you don't feel like you really deserve to win the game and the refs helped you out a lot. It's like, well, it was great. We're Super Bowl champions, but would have been better to feel like we earned it more.
how
But
much did the because I haven't gone back and watched that Super Bowl in a really long time, but I do remember at the time feeling like the officiating gripes were a little overblown. Like, how much were they actually affecting the game? I don't. I remember there being some controversial call in the end zone where the Seahawks might have scored a touchdown or something, but I honestly don't remember
yeah,
anymore.
I think there was a push off or like they called a pass interference or push off or whatever in the end
Oh,
zone on the
okay.
Seahawks that on the would have been a touchdown pass, if I remember correctly. Um, and then they didn't. What I don't remember how that drive went, but they didn't score a touchdown after that. Yeah, I I mean, it was pretty clear, I think, on the replay that there's like an extended arm and it's a little push. And now, like how much it impacted the play, I think you could debate, but at least it sort of met the letter. And if it was that obvious, I see why they called it, right? But of course, I'm a Steelers fan. Of course, I see why they called it. The other one that I think maybe is tough there, right, is or one of the tough plays was the uh, fourth and goal play where Roethlisberger sneaks it, or wasn't even really a sneak. It was just like a quarterback draw kind of, and dives for it, and it's not obvious that he gets it, and then he like as he's already down, and he sort of shifts the ball over the goal line as the ref's coming in, and then the ref signals touchdown, and it definitely seemed like that's questionable. Like you could read that as the ref wanting to give them the touchdown. I could see the reading, but there was later like you could someone had a photo with like a line at the goal line, and you could see before he's down that the nose of the ball has crossed the goal line. So, whatever. It was a touchdown. It was the right call, but I could see why you would watch that and think there was bias in it.
But it did, yeah. Like in general, so this kind of tracks with my memory of like I don't know that officiating was as big of a story as it has been made in hindsight. Like it's one of those things where like yes, there are some calls where I can see why people were mad in the moment or but they I mean, we watch football every week. Like, they're not any more controversial than the calls that happen all the time. Like, with like the arm extension OPI, like they ref that 100 different ways during the course of a season. Like, something is a push off and something isn't a push off, and I don't know. So, like, because offensive players shove defenders to create separation all the time, and like sometimes they just extend too much apparently, and that gets
Yeah.
called. Or if it's like not at the stem of your route where you're breaking out. I feel like they give way more leeway at the stem of the route, but then sometimes they don't, and then you push off and you get called. So I don't know. Like these are all just par for the course of how the NFL is officiated, and it's weird to me that there are people that are just like, well, the Steelers lost the Super Bowl because of the refs. It's like you scored 10 points. Like, okay.
We won it because of the refs, but yes, yeah,
Or sorry, the Seahawks lost the Super Bowl.
yeah, yeah. They did only score 10 points, so that's right. And well, I don't know. Yeah, who was the better team that day? I don't. It wasn't. I don't. It was pretty evenly matched, maybe. But whatever. I mean, yeah, it's long gone. We won. We have the Lombardi now, so that's the end of that, right? Um, but that also raises another good question we should talk about sometime, which is like the worst calls that have gone against the Chiefs. I mean, we have hit some of them already,
Oh yeah,
um,
yeah. I
but there's
mean,
some
I
good
have a
ones,
strong.
right?
Yeah, there are some really good ones. Oh yeah, that'll be fun. One of them was this, against the Steelers. I still don't know. I go back and forth on how bad of a call this was, but it was. Do you remember when the game when the Steelers beat the Chiefs in the playoffs and that 18-16 game, I think, where we didn't allow a touchdown and we lost? And we had come down and we had scored. So at one point, I guess it must have been 18-10, and we came down and scored a touchdown, and then we had a 2-point conversion that we converted, but they called Eric Fisher. They called holding on Eric Fisher against James Harrison, who had like on one hand, James Harrison had definitely cornered. On the other hand, he definitely slipped and went down and slipped. And like, it's one of those rare times where like, I don't actually know if it was a hold or not. Like, I'm really annoyed that it was called. And the referee, Carl Treffers, he's been the one, we've had some real rough days with him. Although we did win a Super Bowl with him last year, so he's the one who called the hold on the Eagles that ended up sealing the
There you
game for
go.
us. So but yeah, that one, it's a very impactful penalty. I don't know that it's like the worst call or even in the top 10 worst calls against the Chiefs, but he definitely slipped, and that's hard.
Yeah, yeah. I vaguely remember that. Was it? There was something in like James Harrison hadn't been he'd been cycling in and out at that point. I can't remember. There was something about
Yeah,
him being in on that play where it was unusual. Like we put him in on that play because we wanted to get him against Fisher on that play or something like that. But I can't remember exactly what the story was there.
And this was
But I
his like stint. He had like gone to the. He'd even been to the Patriots, I think, by this time, and come back to the Steelers, right?
is that right?
And
Yeah, maybe.
because I know he went to
I
the
believe that.
Bengals, and I think he was at the Patriots, and then came. So like this was like the swan song for James Harrison, and was still good enough to corner against Eric Fisher. Like Eric Fisher did get beat, like 100%. And the question is just whether he held him or whether he got to him, and then James Harrison fell down, definitely, and James Harrison's feet definitely came out from under him. I don't know. This is where like I feel like you just got to ask people that played offensive line because there's so many nuances to the rule that I feel like a lot of us don't understand. Like even the whole like you're allowed to hold them within the frame of the body, and
Yeah.
at some point like even if one part of the rules that I didn't realize is if you basically keep them within your frame and a couple of seconds go by and then they try to like pull back and stuff, like the ref is basically just not going to give you a holding call. Like if
Hmm.
you have shown that you can maintain someone in the frame for like 3-4 seconds of a play, apparently that play is yours. Like the only exception is kind of when the quarterback scrambles out, then you have to release. When the quarterback is like behind the defensive player, you end up having to release or you can get called for a hold. So I don't
Yeah.
know. There's a lot of nuance to that stuff.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah. I don't remember thinking that was obviously a good call, but I certainly think I was relieved that they made the call. um, but this is well, we got to come back to this because
yeah, we should.
we could have a lot of fun or not fun with this topic.
All
Should we
right.
take a
Well,
break?
yeah, let's do it, and then we can get to Chief stuff after.
Okay.
And we're back. All right. I guess time for the state of the Chiefs.
Yeah. Yeah. So I've got, I think, like you, some a few sort of topical, newsworthy questions, but then also some more general ones. So first and most importantly, on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being the most excited and one being the least excited, how excited are you about Carson Wentz, and why is the answer a 10?
Well, I guess why the answer is a 10 is that uh, he has won as many games as like our three prior backup quarterbacks combined, and has lost just over half the games that they had lost in their career. So he's a better backup than them. Yeah, I don't. I mean, I don't know. I find it really funny that there have been really like strong it shows you how there's nothing going on right now that people care a lot like I care almost nothing like I'm not negative about it. We needed a backup quarterback. We have one and he's probably better than Blaine Gabbert last year. And I mean I love Chad Henne, and I will never say a bad word about Chad Henne because he came in the playoffs twice and contributed to us winning two different divisional round games. So I would be thrilled if Wentz was as useful a backup as Chad Henne, but he's had a better career than Henne did. So I don't know. And you know what? You know why it's a 10? Maybe we'll run a QB sneak again. Like Carson Wentz is a good QB sneak quarterback. Maybe we'll just bring him in to run the QB sneak on 3rd and 1 and not have to worry about these crazy short yardage plays.
Yeah, there you go. It's going to be a game changer. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's it's so strange. There was a time when Carson Wentz like is so hyped, right? It's not like it looked like he was going to be one of the top quarterbacks for a while, and now I don't know what's gone on there. But I do remember playing the Eagles back in maybe it was 2017 or 2016, and they just destroyed us. I think it was like 31-3 or something with Wentz playing. And I mean, I typically have a very high opinion of people that trounce us. uh, and so for a while there, I just like, yeah, I thought he was great. And clearly
He
was wrong.
I mean, he was on pace to win the MVP that 2017 year. If he hadn't got hurt, I feel pretty strongly that he would have been the MVP.
Yeah,
And then his
such a
team won
strange.
the Super Bowl without him, so maybe that tells us what we needed to know. But
Yeah. But Nick Foles
I'm
had
trying.
a, I mean, I don't know, how do you explain? Yeah, that's a whole weird season to try to evaluate for the Eagles, right? I mean,
Yeah,
I don't know what you make of that or how one even like emotionally relates to that. Because you want, I think we talked about before, like sort of relating to the team through the quarterback, and if partway through the season, you know, the quarterback that you were super excited about and amped about gets hurt, and then the backup comes in and just goes on a crazy playoff run, wins the Super. I don't know how that's such a strange season. It's almost, I mean, you're excited, but it's weird.
and I don't, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure like when Foles came in the regular season, he was not that good. And then I think even in their divisional round game, I don't remember that he was that good. And then suddenly in like the NFC title game in the Super Bowl, he just, and especially the Super, I mean, that Super Bowl was Tom Brady threw for 500 yards is the only time anyone's ever thrown for five. Like Brady was wheeling and dealing, and Nick Foles outdueled him. Like, I mean, what a feather in the cap for your career. Like Nick Foles has a Super Bowl MVP for outdueling like a on his game Tom Brady. Like you can't make this stuff up.
Yeah, it's that's so. I mean, what I wonder. That's kind of performance where you wonder, like, what was Nick Foles doing for the 2 weeks leading up to the Super Bowl? There was he just thinking, like, look, I have 2 weeks to make for essentially to change my life here, so I'm just gonna like throw everything. I mean, that's what you probably do in that situation, right? I mean, you got 2 weeks to, yeah, to turn your life not like his life was not going well, but like to just turn your life around in a really good way, and yeah, do everything you can to do that, and he did it. So
And one thing, so the thing that's hard for me to explain is what happened to Nick Foles afterward, because I actually am a little more. So people forget that the year before he was our backup in Kansas City, and he actually had to play because Alex Smith got concussed. He came in against the Colts and played well. Like he pushed the ball down the field in the way that Smith. I remember he threw like a deep touchdown to Tyreek Hill, and this was Tyreek Hill's rookie season. I was like, oh, this Foles guy's pretty good. And then he started the next week against Jacksonville and he won that game too. So like I remember thinking like, huh, this is like Nick Foles is not bad. Like maybe he's kind of figured it out in his career. And then he goes and he's the backup in Philly the next year and wins Super Bowl MVP. And then does nothing useful. I like did he must have had one or two good games for the rest of his career, but like not really, right? Like there's nothing that I can remember happening after that Super Bowl MVP.
no, I don't remember anything either, which is so strange. Uh,
I remember the only time I remember Nick Foles is I remember him having a really bad game for the Bears, and the next year, no, 2 years later, so it was the year that we won the Super Bowl. That week one, he was the starting quarterback for the Jaguars, and he got hurt in like the first quarter, and Gardner Minshew came in, and that's when the world was introduced to Gardner Minshew. He actually
was
like
that the
played
game where
pretty decently
Mahomes was
against us.
just like totally lighting it up? I remember watching.
Yeah, that was
Yeah,
like 300 yards in the first half, and I think Sammy Watkins had. So Tyreek Hill got hurt in that game too, and Sammy Watkins had like 198 yards and three touchdowns receiving. It was just, it was a that was a crazy like we that first half was going, and I was like, this was like the last time we had seen the Chiefs play was the D Ford game when they lost to the Patriots in the AFC title game, and then Mahomes comes out and is just like a fire breathing dragon. And it's like, oh my god, we're probably gonna win the Super Bowl. And we did, but it was not as linear a trajectory as I would have expected.
yeah, that was one of those games where I think watching Mahomes, you're just like, all right, he's on another level. Like, no, like this is the kind of performance, like, yeah, only a great person, only a great player can have that kind of performance. And that was one of them. Okay. Anyway, next question. Again, timely, I guess. There's something going on with Rashee Rice. I don't know if you want to give us an update on that. I don't really. I mean, I know the one sentence details, but if you have anything more to say about it,
Yeah,
go
I
ahead.
can. I will. I'll tell you what I know, and the conclusions that can be based on the information I feel like are very few. But so there was a car accident. When would this have been? Was this Sunday morning, or was it Saturday morning? I can't recall now. But one of the mornings this weekend, there was a car accident in the Dallas area that involved two cars that were driving way too fast, a Lamborghini and a Corvette, and they crashed into each other, causing an accident that resulted in like six cars crashing. Fortunately, no serious injuries, which is, I think, the most important takeaway of this entire thing. But it appears that the Corvette was owned by Rashee Rice, and the Lamborghini was leased or rented by Rashee Rice, and Rashee Rice was supposed to be the driver of the Lamborghini, but was not driving the Lamborghini and was allegedly driving the Corvette. Uh, I feel like people. I don't know that this has been confirmed, but it seems like a fair assumption that he was driving the Corvette at this point, and that there were four people that appear to have included Rice. At least there's a picture and video of someone who looks awfully like Rashee Rice, if it's not him, walking away from the scene afterward, basically. So not good. You know, like it's one of those things that you kind of fall on it. You know, it's difficult because, you know, morality wise, it's one of those things that's, you know, one should not be doing, and it's risking endangering people's lives, and it's really a terrible thing to do. And I've had a lot of people say, which I think fair, you know, I tend to lean more on the side of like, this is just an awful thing to do, and I think that's how it should be viewed. You know, people do make the point that like there are a lot of people that do a lot of really dumb things when they're that age, and the reason why it doesn't result in an accident or something that could harm other people is just pure dumb luck. And I think that is also true. And I don't think you paint someone their entire life based on some one decision they made. You know, you can hold the competing thoughts of the fact that nobody should ever do this, and because one did do this doesn't mean that this is how they should be judged for the rest of their life, depending on what they do with the rest of their life. So, and it's also true that the difference, and I think the scariest part of all of this is that the difference between Rashee Rice and Henry Ruggs, who, you know, got into a crash and ended up killing someone and her dog in a fire in the car, like because of the crash, is also probably luck. Like, we know Henry Ruggs was intoxicated. We're probably never going to know if Rashee Rice or anybody driving those cars were, because they were not contacted by police because they left the scene. Like, nobody had any contact with them until well afterwards, so one will never know, I guess. But yeah, so from that standpoint, it's tough. I think from my very, very novice legal understanding is that in these kinds of situations, like, outcomes do matter a lot. And so the fact that he had the luck that nobody got seriously hurt is probably going to mean that he's not going to face any really, like, you know, felony level charges. Now, I don't think that's a guarantee, but that's what it seems like may be the case, just because the law is more outcome based. I'm sure he will face some sort of charges. I mean, he's already retained counsel. I'm sure the NFL will have some sort of punishment for him, but it doesn't seem like, at least at this point, this is something that, from now kind of switching gears to a more football perspective, it doesn't seem like something that's going to, like, definitely not be terminal for his career, and maybe not even affect his career more than a chunk of a season, you know. But
Yeah.
it's hard, you know. It's one of those situations where, again, like I said, nobody should do anything like this, and at the same time, people do a lot of really dumb things and get lucky. And I don't know that I can off the top of my head think of something I did that was this bad, but I'm sure there are a lot of things that I've done that could have resulted in much worse things if I hadn't been lucky. I'm trying to think. I can't think of anything off the top of my head that's this severe. So maybe it's hard to know as a person when you're judging these things, like, where do you put the line? And I've always been someone that believes that you everyone deserves a second chance, but I don't think people deserve a third one. So, if people do something and they do something really bad, and I think the big part of that though is you should pay the punishment for what you did. So I think you did something, you should go through what you're supposed to go through for someone who has done that. And then beyond that, you get a second chance, but hopefully lessons were learned.
Yeah. Yeah, this is the way you're analogizing this with the Ruggs case. I mean, philosophers like to talk about um, moral luck. I don't know if this is like in the common phrase or if it's just a philosophical phrase at this point. Like a lot of my grips on what's philosophical and what's not have withered as I just live in philosophy now. But yeah, I mean, and one of the classic examples of moral luck is two people racing cars, and one of them crashes and kills someone, and one of them crashes and hits a tree. And it seems like, morally speaking, the first one is sort of more, they did something morally much worse, even though it was just a matter of luck. And so it's. I mean, you can argue about this, and maybe it's not moral. It certainly, as you were saying, it's legally it has more legal ramifications if the consequences are worse. And you can debate whether, morally speaking, it's also worse. But a lot of people at least have the intuition that yeah, it was. So I don't know. It's a kind of, I don't do enough moral philosophy to have strong intuitions about it, I guess. But um, it's definitely the kind of, yeah, kind of thing one should not do. We can we can agree on that part.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's like it's something that someone should pay the price for and be, reprimanded for, but at the same time, I don't know that it necessarily should define their life unless they decide to continue making decisions like that.
Mm. Yeah. Um, you can imagine it's, yeah. I mean, there's something also added to it, the fact that like it wasn't just like doing something mundane and then some crazy thing happens and someone dies as a result or something like that. Not that that happened here, but it was like doing something outside the law in the first place that causes this, which is maybe partly why we have the intuition that it's like if I'm just like biking down the street and somehow I don't know how I would bike and cause some huge moral catastrophe. But if that happened, right, then you might think, well, I wasn't doing anything wrong, right? So how much could I be to blame for it? But anyway, I'm just rambling here. Yeah, strange moral questions come up in these kinds of cases, I guess is the upshot. I have other questions that are less timely. But is there anything more timely you want to say about the Chiefs right now? Anything that free agency wise that you want to comment on?
I guess not really. I think Wentz and then the Rashee Rice situation were the two big things that have happened since. So yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah. Okay. Well, then I do have a question about what your least favorite Chiefs game is that you attended in person. And I do. Yeah, you have some good options, I think.
Yeah, I I mean, I think the number one has to be the game we talked about the other week with the forward progress game. Like that was really bad because we were up 21-3 and we were going to win this. So like people forget,
This is
like
against
at
the
this
Titans, right?
against the Titans at the end of the 2017 season. And at this time, the Chiefs had not won a home playoff game since the end of the 1993 season. So I was thinking, like, at halftime, I said to the person I went to the game with, like, I think you're about to witness the first Chiefs home playoff win since 1993 season. Like, the last Chiefs home playoff win at that point had been against the Steelers in the wild card round after the 93 season. Joe Montana was our quarterback. That was the last quarterback that had won a home playoff game for the Chiefs. So I guess it had been 4 years at this point where we lost the crazy luck game, the Andrew Luck game. That was 4 years ago. So that was another playoff gut punch. Then in 2016, so we were coming off the year where we lost the game to the Steelers, where we didn't allow a touchdown and we lost at home in the playoffs. So there was a lot. And then that forward progress call, and oh God, Mariota throwing a touchdown to himself. And it was horrible. It was all terrible. So that was, I actually got, they gave like a commemorative towel for the game. And the first thing I did, I drove back from Kansas City to St. Louis. And my dog at the time used to just rip up anything cloth he ever got his paws on. So I just gave him the towel and he just tore it to shreds. Like, I was like, this is the worst.
I
So,
don't want this. Yeah.
and that was the last time we played a game where Mahomes wasn't our starter. So, maybe good came from it. We had
Yeah.
already drafted him at that point. He was on the bench for that game, but so yeah, that one has to be the worst. I've been to a couple bad ones though. Like we just talked about that Ravens game. That was also really bad where I believe we were up like 35-24 now that I'm thinking about it in the fourth quarter and we ended up losing that game. And that was a game like the game winning touchdown that wouldn't have been game winning if Clyde Edwards-Helaire hadn't fumbled. But that touchdown was the one where like Lamar Jackson like somersaulted into the end zone, and then he apparently like injured his hip a little bit because he was on the injury report the next week for his hip. I mean, it wasn't bad enough for him to miss time or anything, but yeah. And then another bad one was I went to another Sunday night game where the Chiefs got just blitzed by the Bills. It was the same season, the 21 season. And to add insult to injury, there was like a 1 hour lightning delay. So like it rained, then we all had to evacuate, like we had to go into the concourse. We waited an hour, then they restarted the game and we proceeded to get our butts kicked even more. So that was fun. And then I had to drive back from Kansas City to St. Louis, like not arriving until like 2. Both of these actually, the Ravens game and the Bills game. So the Ravens game, I drove from Baltimore to New York after that Sunday night game. The Bills game, I did 4 hours from Kansas City to St. Louis, and it was already delayed an hour. So, and I just remember being like, after those two games, because they were not that far apart. I think one was week 2 and one was week 4. And after we like completed both of those games, I remember just being like, I think I'm too old to do this. like I like woke up feeling like I was hungover both days. I was like, this is horrible. I'm going watching this stupid team lose and then driving home and feeling like I've been like run over by a car the next day. Like I can't do this anymore. Which you
Yeah.
come to think of it, I don't know if I've been to a Chiefs game since. I went to those two in like 3 weeks and that was it. I haven't been to one since then.
Uh, that's you got some bad ones in there. Yeah. And that could turn one off for a while. Although might be worth going again. I mean, I'm going to tell you this, and then you're going to go and you'll have another terrible experience. So,
I had been on a decent run before that season, actually. I had like, because there was a long stretch where I'd gone where we never won a game. And then I think culminating in, I went with Sonu to a game in the 2016 season where we lost to the Titans, and that was the previous coldest Chiefs game before this last Dolphins one in the playoffs. It was so cold that the beer taps froze. And like we got beers there and like you had about 10 minutes to drink it before the whole thing was frozen through. Like it was so cold. Like we got for some reason at halftime we decided to go get frozen margaritas from the concourse, and we came back and Sonu got so like his hands were so cold that he left the game in the third quarter to go to the concourse to get a hot sandwich to get something to warm up his hands. Like we had hand warmers, we had foot warmers in our socks. Like oh man, it was so cold. And then again, the Chiefs were winning the entire game and we lost on a last second field goal. So that was fun. But after that, we went back. We saw the Chiefs play the Broncos on Christmas, and the Chiefs won that game. Then I saw the Chiefs Eagles. That actually same Carson Wentz season, 2017. We beat the Eagles. And then I saw one Mahomes game the next year, the Chiefs Jaguars. We beat the Jaguars at home. So I was on a little bit of a run, and then this happened.
yeah. Well, how about we flip the question then and ask about the favorite Chiefs game you've attended in person?
I think it would be the Chiefs Broncos Christmas game. So Sonu and I went to that game. That was again a Sunday night game. It was raining the entire time. Sonu lost one of his contact lenses during the game and spent like no joke, like an hour looking for it in this like muddy. It's raining in the stadium. He found it like on some like pool of, and he put it back in his eye. Like it was like the
Oh, I
most
love that.
disgusting. Like, but he was just so irritated by seeing having different vision in both of his eyes that he was like adamant he had to find. I don't know how he found it. I had given up on it like ages before. Like, and then he was like, I found it. I was like, really? And I was like, wait, you're gonna put that in your? He just put it back in his eye. I was like, but we. It was a fairly like thorough beatdown of the Broncos. Like Travis Kelce caught a screen pass and took it 80 yards for a touchdown, and we cemented the game by throwing Dontari Poe, who was our nose tackle, threw a touchdown pass to Demetrius Harris, I believe. Like it was like he did the Tebow jump pass. Like we snapped it to him, we thought he was going to run, and he stopped and jumped and threw it at the goal line for a touchdown.
I kind of remember that. Yeah.
And that was in the end zone we were sitting in, so that was great. I got a video of it as it happened. So that was probably the best experience I've had at this Chief game. And it was Christmas Day, actually. So, like, they were playing, like, the Mariah Carey, All I Want for Christmas Is You, and the entire stadium was just dancing in the rain to it. It was fun. It was a good time.
Man, that is a good one. What year was that?
That was the 2016 season. So,
Okay.
Christmas 2016.
It's sad that like you haven't had your best one is not a Mahomes one. I feel like you need to go to more. You got to go to more games now because like you've got this is like the golden era, right?
Yeah.
You gotta live. You gotta live them.
Yeah, I got so gun shy the 2021 season. The 2022 season, I was in Sacramento. So there was not. I think the Chiefs played in San Francisco, and I was in St. Louis that weekend. So I missed out on that. Otherwise, I would have gone to that game. That ended up being a beatdown of the Niners, too. That would have been fun. But yeah, I now after having a 9 month, like I have a 9 month old now, so it's a little harder to get out to the game. I was actually here in New York by myself the weekend, the Sunday night game when we played at the Jets. So I theoretically could have gone to that game, but in New York, like you have to go over to New Jersey, and it would have been like a little more of a mess to go to that game. So, and I just remember being like exhausted that day. I remember I was like somewhat considering it up to the game, but just being like, I'm just way too tired. But that's yeah. Next year the Chiefs are playing in Pittsburgh, so if you want to go to a
Really,
game, yeah,
that'll be fun. Maybe it'll be another six touchdown game from Mahomes. like
I actually I haven't been to Pittsburgh since I graduated college. I haven't been there since
really.
2012, so it's been a long time. We should like go make a weekend of it. Go to like eat at what was the place I love to eat at in Squirrel Hill? There was a there was this place called Galifty's. I used to
Yeah,
like getting like wings and dessert there.
I think they might have closed. I'm not sure.
Oh no.
Yeah, because that was one of my mom's favorite places. Because we used to live in Squirrel Hill, and I think we tried to go back one time, and they were maybe I'm making that up, but somewhere was close. I think it was Clifty's.
And I now which of the do you remember? Because there are like two competing pizza places, and one of them is in Squirrel Hill, and that's the one that I like. I don't remember if that one was Minos or not. I can't even remember what the
Is
other
it
one was.
is it Minio's? I think it's
Oh,
Minio's.
Minios, yeah, Minios.
Yeah,
I
yeah, it's
think,
super cheesy, right?
yeah, I just remember. My regret though is like I love the pepperoni and sausage, and I don't eat those meats anymore, unfortunately. But I'm sure I would still enjoy. And I'd have to go to Primanti's again. I haven't been to Primanti Brothers. Oh yeah, I
Yeah,
feel like if once the schedule comes out, if we can do this, we should do this.
this would be
I'm
cool. We could
getting
do a
completely
live
invested in a Pittsburgh weekend.
podcast episode or something
Oh yeah, the
from
first
the
time we're
game.
like in the same place.
Yeah. That would be interesting. Yeah, no, that would be really fun. And I have a very bad record watching the Steelers in person, so it would probably, if that continues, be a. I mean, it's probably gonna be a Chiefs win anyway, but they got a good shot. I think I've seen like one or two Steelers wins in my life. Um, one of them you were there for. That was another bad game on your list of
Oh
bad
yeah, I didn't even
games.
add that one.
uh, the Steelers Chiefs Sunday night in 2011. Is that right?
Yeah, 2011. Yeah,
Tyler
Matt
Palko
Castle
versus
was
Ben
hurt. Yeah,
Roethlisberger.
Tyler Palco. Yeah, I also because I think before I had gone to that Christmas game that I'm is now my favorite game. The best Chiefs experience I had had was I think oh boy. Yeah, it was 2005. It's the first Chiefs game I ever went to. It was a Monday night game and we were hosting the Patriots. And we kind of got close to winning. And that was the my biggest memory. So at this time like the Chiefs defense was really really bad, which has been the case for a lot of my Chiefs fandom, but I just remember I was sitting in the upper deck and like Brady is just driving down the field and about to score again against us. And I remember a guy behind me just standing up and yelling at our defense, ostensibly, guys, you suck. What's it like to wake up in the morning every single day, look in the mirror, and realize that you suck? I just remember thinking that was so funny at the time. I was like 15. Like, being like, oh my God, people take this really seriously. Like,
Yeah, they do. um, uh, that's that. I have some. Yeah, I've been to a couple of Steelers Patriots games, and we didn't win any of them. But yeah, one of them, one of my favorite Steelers games was one we almost won against the Patriots. Similarly, um, so yeah, yeah. Well, anyway, we should keep an eye on the schedule for next year because that would be pretty cool. I don't know
yeah.
if we can make it happen.
I'm hoping
Um,
it's earlier in the year so it's not terribly cold. I feel like Pittsburgh will be more fun in like September than in December.
yeah. Yep. Yep. Um, all right. Well, that's all my Chiefs questions. Do you want to let's see? Do you want
Yeah,
to
we
go on to
can.
some general sort of football or NFL questions?
Yeah, let's do it. We could probably get at least one in before we have to take a break.
Okay.
Let me ask you this: what do you make of the running backs getting paid this offseason much more so? Because, you know, last year it was so bad that, like, the running backs all came together and had a Zoom meeting about how, like, nobody's paying them. And I have some numbers about contracts for this year. So in 2023, there was only one running back who got a multi-year deal worth more than 6.5 million per year, and that was Jonathan Taylor, who had to hold out. And after his holdout, he got a 3 year, $42 million deal. But this year, there are six deals that qualify for that threshold. Saquon Barkley got three for 37.5 from the Eagles. Josh Jacobs got four for 48 from the Packers. Joe Mixon, I actually don't even remember where Joe Mixon signed, but he got three for 27. DeAndre Swift got three for 24.5. I believe that was the Falcons. Tony Pollard got three for 24 from the Titans, and Derrick Henry got two for 18 from the Ravens. So, what do you make of the fact that running backs are at least getting paid more this offseason than last offseason?
I don't know. That's surprising. What could come of a Zoom meeting you would in this context, right? I mean, it seems like hard to imagine what that could do, uh, but it does seem like something has changed. I don't know if, yeah, yeah. I mean, maybe people are thinking there's so much of deep cover two being played now that the running back position is going to be more valued, that you're going to have to draw people up into the box and then with a strong running game. I don't know. Maybe it's just like a sort of league wide transition to thinking about, yeah, like we've prioritized stopping the deep pass so much that now the thing to move to next is a strong running game. Um, but honestly, I don't know. That's uh, maybe you just chalk it up to statistical noise that they weren't getting those contracts last year and now they are. Um, but I don't have a good explanation for it. I don't know. Do you think that there is a sort of trend here that you can? I mean, there's certainly a trend, but is it noise, or do you think there's an explanation that? And what kind of explanation could it even be? Like the only thing that I'm thinking of is the sort of game trends about what teams are positioned to defend right now.
Yeah, I mean that was my thought too. Actually, that it might be that in order these days now, in order to open up the ability to throw the ball, you have to get teams to at least respect your run game a little bit. Also, just that some of the more prolific offenses over the past, especially last year, at the Niners, the Eagles, the Lions come to mind as teams that like really based a lot in their run game and threw with the threat of the run game. And one could argue that there's always been a little bit of that to McVay's offense too. Um, Trying to think of the other like good offensive teams. I mean, even the Dolphins honestly ran the ball quite effectively and really struggled when they couldn't run the ball. So I wonder if in today's landscape where teams are just ready to force you to do anything underneath, like it becomes imperative to bring the safeties up, like you've said. And I wonder if it's as simple as that.
Yeah, get it right. So especially if you can get like a well, I don't know. I guess not all those running backs are like big bruising backs like Derrick Henry or something, but someone that can do that, you're going to need maybe a couple people to bring him down, right? That's going to be even better, right? If you know more people in the box, the better for your passing game, essentially. Right?
Yeah, because and that I think about like recently the Chiefs' offense has not looked like its former self, but the last like really really crazily good half that we played, I feel like was the Super Bowl against the Eagles, and that really started because we got our run game going. And that really opened everything out. Like for as great as, and I think that's one of the best games Mahomes has played. And the one, I mean, the second half against the Eagles, we got every single yard that we could have possibly gotten. The only exception to that is when Jerick McKinnon like slid at the one to run out the clock. Like if he had scored a touchdown there, we would have actually technically gotten every single yard that we could have gotten the entire half.
Do you mean like where they started the drive? You know, like
And we just scored a
they ate
touchdown
them
every
all up.
time.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
exactly. Yeah.
You could imagine them getting penalized, going backward, and then getting more yards. Like, right? But yeah, it's fair. Let's like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, that's true. That there's always the potential for more yardage, I guess. I mean, wouldn't it be great if someone had a greater than 100-yard drive? Because like you got well, I guess
kept
the
going
drive
right.
would
Yeah.
still count as like a 98-yard drive or whatever, but they would have gotten more than 100 offensive yards on the drive.
Yeah, yeah. Could you imagine like a quarterback passes for like 200 yards on one drive or something like
Yeah.
that? That would be
Yeah,
good.
I guess it's possible.
Yeah.
That's funny. Um,
Um,
But yeah, that really started when we got the run game going. And Mahomes for that entire game had 182 passing yards or something like that. Like we ran the ball really, really well. So maybe that's the thinking is that this is the new inefficiency.
yeah. Well, I hope so. It seems like that's the trend that we're going in. That's what I would expect our offense to look like at least. Um,
The question with your offense though is like, are people going to put safeties back?
yeah, yeah. Do we have any receivers that they need to worry about? I mean, we have Pickens, but then is there any other kind of threat? Not yet. Um,
I feel like
yeah,
you
we
got to
have
at
some
least put
problems.
one person back because with Pickens, like if he catches a slant, I feel like he's gone if you don't have a safe. Like when they run cover zero, I just hope you just run a slant with Pickens every time. If he catches that ball, break one tackle, he's gone.
Yeah, I think of him as yeah, that's right because he did have a couple catches last year where it was like taking a slant all the way. I typically think of him as just the sort of deep ball guy, but he's not, and I think maybe that's a function of just our offense being unable to do anything other than like throw a screen or throw a deep ball. I think it's not like it threw either of those well, but that's all it did. Uh, so I just haven't seen Pickens do other things that much until like late last year, basically. Um, but he did take some slants for good gains. So, all right. So anyway, my question for you is: we take a break here in like a minute. So how superstitious are you? Quickly.
Uh, well, I'd like to say not, but I mean, I wore a jersey when we won the Bills game, and I wore the same jersey when we won the Ravens game, and I won the same jersey for the Super Bowl. So I I'm not superstitious in that I don't actually think I'm having any impact, but if I do something and we win and I have the opportunity to do it again, like I will do it. I don't think I'll get like mad about it if I can't do it, but it's like, well, why not? I got to pick something to wear. Like, might as well wear what I wore last time, you know?
Yeah. I have a pitch for why this is actually like you. The natural thought would be this is like an anti-scientific sort of mindset. I have a pitch for why it's actually scientific, but maybe I'll give you that pitch after we come back from the break.
All right, sounds good. And we're back. All right, so you were going to give us the argument for superstition from a scientific perspective.
Yeah, or at least like a quasi-scientific perspective. I think, um, like a lot of times, what scientists end up doing, I think, is they're not just trying to discover more facts, right, about the world. It's not like they want to know how many grains of sand are on this beach or anything. Like they look for useful facts, that is facts that they give us causal levers over things that we care about, essentially. And in a sense, I think that's what superstition, at least in this kind of context, is doing, right? It's saying like, look, here's something I really care about, whether the Chiefs win or the Steelers win or whatever. I don't seem to have any direct causal levers over that, but there is something like, I wore this jersey last time and they won, so I'll do it again, right? So I think there's like some sort of impulse there that is at least resembles like a sophisticated scientific approach to trying to sort of navigate the world. That is, find the causal levers that you can use to get what you want. And superstition would just be a kind of outgrowth of that, or something along those lines. That's my sort of charitable reading of superstition. I used to be very superstitious, and so maybe I was like inclined to try to like justify it, but but I don't know. I mean, it seems fairly reasonable to me still, having no empirical evidence to support it.
So, people out there, when you tell your girlfriend that she has to keep sitting in the same chair because your team is making a comeback, you're actually conducting an experiment. That's all you're doing. That's what
Yeah,
you're doing.
a very scientific frame of mind. That's what it is. But I wanted to ask whether your superstition level, as it were, has changed over time, or has it always been kind of where it is now?
I think it's probably gotten a little bit less, but I was never like a terribly superstitious person. Like I I think I had a little more like ritualistic thoughts about football, but not really. Like I never had like a I'm trying to think, did I ever have like a favorite shirt that I wore? I don't think so. A lot of times part of it is it's just too much for me to keep track of these things. Like, I was like, what did I wear last time? Like, I don't remember. But I definitely like, I don't know. Every once in a while, you just start I remember even not that long ago with this Bills game we were talking about where there was the big rain delay. Like I was going to St. Louis and then I was going to go to Kansas City from there, and I was trying to pick like what shoes I was going to wear, and I ended up wearing like one of like the nicest pairs of shoes I have, which is a pair of like Jordan 11s that are in like black and white, and I don't wear them very much because I don't want to get them dirty. But I was just like, finally, I concluded like, it's a big game, like go big or go home. And then I got to wear them like in the rain and everything else to the game, and we lost anyway. So, but yeah, I guess ultimately I'd have to say my superstition hasn't really changed that much. Like I will do certain things sometimes, but I definitely won't revolve any of my behaviors around needing to do certain things.
Yeah, that seems healthy. used to be, yeah, very superstitious and wear like I'd wear the same thing, same outfit every game day, or at least the same jersey every game day, and I would like shave on Sunday morning, or it had to be like the game day morning. So if it was like a Monday night game, I wouldn't shave until Monday, uh, like this kind of thing. And then I don't remember when it started to like decrease, but uh, I think I maybe we just stopped being very good, but that's been more recent. I don't know. I think it's just sort of declined a bit. I sort of try to tuck myself out of it at some point. Like this is not productive. Um, but and nowadays I don't keep track at all because good things rarely happen. I mean they happen enough that we haven't had a losing record still. But yeah, there's not enough like awesome things happening for me to try to preserve them. So I don't know. I
Yeah,
guess
you end up
that's
with like really weird. Because I was trying to think, like, why did I start? Because I didn't wear anything special for the Chiefs Dolphins playoff game. Then so the Chiefs Bills game, I actually the reason why I started wearing that jersey was because it was a jersey given to me by my brother-in-law, so my wife's sister's husband, and he's a Bills fan, and he gave me the jersey, and it actually says on the back of it, it says for the name, it says Abu. Well, I shouldn't say. I don't want to say my daughter's name on the podcast, but Abu means father of, and then it says my daughter's name. So that's what it is on the back. So I wore that. I think partially because like he was a Bills fan and he gave it to me, and I thought it would be funny to be like, "Oh, look, the good luck charm was the jersey you gave me." I don't think I ever said that to him afterward. I like forgot the entire purpose of why I wore it until we were discussing this now. And then since they won, I just kept wearing it through the rest of the playoff run.
well, you might as well start off next season with it too, right? Until it stops working. This is what happens, right? You like it's like, well, I might as well keep doing it, and then if it doesn't work, you think, well, okay, I guess I have to switch it up. This is the path.
I'm sure I will
um,
have forgotten about like I think the most natural course is going to be that it'll be a opening day and like game day, and I just won't remember it all, and I'll just put on some Chief shirt.
I'll try to remind you. I will encourage this. um, okay. I have other questions that are again very general here. Let's see. Okay, so this one you could probably take in like 50 different directions, but I'm curious what you think about like where you see the game of football in general sort of going in the next couple of decades. Like by the time we're old, I guess we're not old yet, right? By the time we're like 60 or something like that, if I make it that long. What do you think the game will be like? In what ways do you think it could be different?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think I don't know. It's a very abstract question for me, but I do think like the one thing I feel certain about is the game is going to continue to trend like faster and trend to be more like you know things that create big plays or create exciting plays are going to be prioritized in how the game is played and how it is officiated. There will be like inevitable swings back. Like initially I was thinking like, well, is the first thing going to be a swing back toward defense? But I kind of feel like that's already happened in the past couple years. We are, the offenses of 20 up until about 2020 are already being curbed a little bit, and teams are having to find ways to be more creative. We went from when kind of I really will credit Andy Reid and Mahomes offense from 2018 as this like real making like four verticals like a really big proponent of your offense, and then having four verticals and having like a backside crosser. We used to run Tyreek Hill on a backside crosser a lot, and teams had to figure out how to defend that. And then now it has gone a little back more to bigger personnel, multiple tight ends, showing the threat of the run in order to combat the deep shells that defenses are playing. So I think the game is just going to kind of spread out more and more. People are going to find more creative ways to move the ball, and then defenses will make adjustments. But it'll be kind of one of those. The general trend is still toward the offense. It's just we're going to go like up and down on that trend line, I think.
Yeah, that's plausible to me too, right? That you're going to have adjustments, sort of league-wide adjustments to combat, like as we get to heavier personnel, like what's the next move going to be? I mean, maybe defenses start coming down into the box more, and then offenses spread them out more. I mean, you could just yeah, you can imagine this going kind of oscillating. Uh, but I agree. The general trend seems like it's going to be toward sort of faster pace, more explosive, or more exciting plays. Um, and that's really where I was imagining. Yeah, that's the kind of answer I was imagining as well. That it's it's kind of like a trite. I don't even know if it's an observation or just a refrain that attention spans are getting shorter and shorter, right? And so I feel like the more you can speed the game up and make it sort of constantly like like Mike Tomlin's term of popcorn plays, right? The more it's going to appeal to people. I don't know. I don't know if I mean probably the attention span thing is true that they're getting shorter, but I mean it's hard for me to imagine that they're not. But also don't know of empirical data that supports that. But if that is right, if attention spans are shortening, then it would seem like you're going to see a trend toward more offense and more. You might even you might see like a push to have a shorter play clock or something, like shorter time between plays, or eliminate plays like the kickoff in the last several seasons that were really just pretty boring. Um, um, so I think one way of seeing the changes in the kickoff rules now is as a reaction to we got to just keep it exciting all the time essentially. Um,
And I do think too, though, that for all that I think we both believe that it'll trend more toward the offense. There definitely, I do believe that the NFL is not going to want it to be a situation where like every game is like 45-44 either. Like, I think the NBA is going through a bit of a reckoning right now where scoring was up so much that they actually, it appears since the All-Star break in the NBA in February, they have started calling way fewer fouls on the defense, and scores have gone down a little bit, and people are actually enjoying it. Like, it has been met with a lot of positivity throughout the NBA community, because the NBA though had gotten to a point where like offensive players were able to basically draw fouls in situations where it wasn't really the fault of the defender. Like they'll just kind of like barrel into a defender and get a foul call. And so those kinds of things were starting to be eliminated and scoring went down. But I think, so it wasn't just that they were thinking scoring was too high. They also realized that some of the fouls were getting kind of dumb. But I wonder if things trend like too far to the offense, if the NFL would still want to bring it down. Because you want there to be, I think the thing that's so nice about football, and maybe this should be separated for a separate topic, but I think football as a sport right now in its current iteration does a great job of marrying excitement with still having value for individual things because they're rare enough. Like the number of games, you don't want to have too many games because each game becomes less important. And the number of playoff teams. It's one of the reasons why I didn't love the seventh playoff team. I thought 12 out of 32, great percentage. You still have enough playoff games that tournament is exciting, but it's still valuable to make it. It's always been weird in the NBA that like 16 out of 30 teams make it. Like more than half of the teams make the playoffs. And I think basketball has a real problem where no one really cares about the regular season. It's too long. It doesn't matter. Everyone just waits until the playoffs even the players, they wait until the playoffs to start playing hard. And football has gotten that right. And that's my one fear that they're going to mess up with like adding playoff teams and adding games and stuff is you don't want to mess up that balance. And I think, to tie it to our conversation about scoring, like each drive is really important right now. You don't want a situation where it becomes so easy to score that you lose that, You want to watch a drive in the second quarter in a football game because it might impact the game materially. In the NBA, like you don't even have to start watching till the fourth quarter because one team will be up 20 in the second quarter and then the game will be tied at halftime. And so they go on all these runs and it's like, does it really matter? Like I'll just start watching the fourth quarter. I would argue football is not like that. In the Chiefs Ravens game in the AFC title game, everything important, not everything, there were a lot of big defensive plays in the second half, but a lot of the importance happened in the first half. And so it's worth watching the whole game right now. And the NFL shouldn't want to lose that if they try to go too far toward the offense.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Uh, right, and it's still exciting, right? When you score a touchdown, if every drive ends in a touchdown, right? It's not exciting anymore, right?
Right.
So you do want to preserve the fact that yeah, the good plays are exciting still. That's right. So yeah, I could see still. I think that there's going to be pressure. You don't want it to be like we go back to like 13-7 final scores
Right.
frequently. I mean, I think you big defensive plays are exciting too, right? So whatever they can do to encourage big plays on either side, as long as
Right.
yeah, but the balance is like still trying to make them feel like big plays when you don't want too many of them. Right?
Right.
Yeah, it's tricky. Um,
And they've done this very well. They've hit this balance really nicely. And so it goes back to what we were talking about last week about how much should you change a game. Like they're in a sweet spot. This is a good game right now. So you don't want to change the game too much.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I feel like that makes sense to tinker with things, which they're doing. But maybe that explains some of the reluctance to even do like things that seem like obviously like they would be good things, like we talked about with the like New York review of just penalties or whatever. Like that wasn't a penalty, move on, right? Maybe they're just thinking like we've got something really good and we don't want to screw it up. But um, some sense I get it. Okay.
Um, let's see. So I was going to ask a different question, but since we're kind of on that topic, I'll actually ask a question that I think kind of furthers this discussion. And that is, how do you grade how good of a commissioner Roger Goodell is? Like, team valuations are skyrocketing. Like we've said, this is a really good game right now. The NFL is increasing in popularity. Does he get credit for those things? Are those things that we feel like are happening independent of him? Would any commissioner be going through this level of success? And then we also, he's presided over the whole Ray Rice debacle. He was there for the Spygate situation where people felt like he handled that really poorly. His whole like draconian player punishment system that ended up like going by the wayside was a real bad one. And then all the concussion issues, he also kind of presided over that initial thing with then his hard turn against it in ways that were really punitive. So what do you make overall of Roger Goodell? Is he a good commissioner?
Yeah, all the things you just mentioned at the end of your question make me think he has been pretty clumsy in a lot of respects, right? And in a lot of like very obvious, like public respects, right? Like how he handled the Ray Rice situation, or yeah, like the appeal for suspensions or fines or whatever. Isn't that it used to just go right back to Goodell? Right? It's the strangest system. What? I don't know if he was. I mean, I guess I can't give him. Maybe he wasn't the one that set the system up that way, but that's so strange, right? Like you made a decision, I'm going to appeal it right back to you. um, uh, Definitely some. I mean, and as a Steelers fan, that we always thought he had it out for like James Harrison or whatnot, but that's neither here nor there. But in some ways, it does seem like he's been fairly clumsy. Now, in other ways, like maybe it's hard to. Maybe there's stuff going on behind the scenes where he's making decisions about like what not to do or how to do it very, very quietly or whatever that is helping preserve or augment the popularity of the game. Again, I don't know how involved he is in some of um, in a lot of the decisions. Like, does he have input on who plays in the halftime show at the Super Bowl, or does he like? What about the competition committee's decisions? Like, how much impact does he have there? These kinds of things I don't really know. But I guess you could. you could imagine it being that he has exhibited wisdom in less obvious ways than he has exhibited um, uh, less unwisdom. And those unwisdom cases are maybe the ones that we all look at and think, yeah, that was clumsy. But I don't know. That's a lot of words to say. I don't know. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it is hard. I mean, clearly the owners are paying him a lot of money. And I think one of the things he is good at doing for sure is being the like face that is willing to take all the criticism. And I really like my conception of Roger Goodell is that that is what his job is just to take all the criticism when things go wrong and handle it and be paid a lot of money to do that. Because I agree with you that there it is quite possible that he's doing things behind the scenes that are useful, and but I guess my argument would be that it does feel like everything that has been like an actual inflection point for the league, like, oh, this is a big deal, has not really been handled that well. Like, I don't know that, like, and again, maybe this is an unfair, portrayal of how things have gone, but to me, it feels like the NFL is a freight train that is running towards success, and very little would be able to stop that right now with its popularity. And I don't know that who was commissioner would have mattered that much to, like, the league is just doing really well. And I think Spygate was a big deal and it was a huge issue. And the fact that they went in and just destroyed the tapes and concluded the investigation so fast, like, it just feels like that was possibly the worst way that you could handle that. Like, if there wasn't a lot of evidence, then at least, like, present some of that so that people will be reassured. And I don't know. It felt like it was so strange. It's so strange that it seems fairly widely believed, and not just in New England, that the whole Tom Brady Deflategate punishment was in a lot of ways trying to save face for the way that Spygate was handled, which that was also such a weird situation where it's like, it really feels like the NFL poorly tried to set up a sting operation. Like, they thought that the balls were being deflated, so they went in and tried to get some of the balls, and without, like, really taking good measurements beforehand. And then when they got their measurements, it wasn't really clear that they were actually deflated more than one would expect in cold temperatures. But they still, like, Deflategate is one of those situations where I don't understand how anyone can have an opinion on it, because it all makes no sense. Like, the only reasonable opinion is that the NFL really mishandled it. But on one hand, you have, like, I don't know that there is really any good scientific data that the balls were deflated. But you do have the guy that the Patriots staff referred to as the deflator, who they had messages about how that Tom Brady wanted his balls in certain ways, and that Brady destroyed his phone as evidence. Like, so, like, there are weird, like, circumstantial things that make you believe that this could have been happening, but no hard evidence at all. What a, I don't
Yeah.
know. So, and the Ray Rice situation was, like, in my opinion, like, inexcusable. The fact that he apparently told Goodell exactly what happened. They decided to suspend him for 2 games. Then the video comes out and he changes the suspension. And so, like, these things are, I don't know, very, very poorly. It just, but then I guess the flip side is people could argue, like, well, if all these things were inflection points for the league, well, the league's still doing well after he made all those decisions. So he hasn't tanked it. And it's like, I guess if that's the standard, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah. Maybe his calculation is, look, I could look very stupid here, but it's not going to hurt the league, and I'm still going to get paid. So whatever, I can look stupid, and I don't care, right? Maybe that's the wisdom that's, like, surreptitiously going, like, under the scenes here, behind the scenes here. I'm not sure. Yeah, it's good. I guess in some ways Goodell is like, yeah, one of those characters that, for me, I mean, I never really thought of him this way, but like Tomlin, I just, like, can get endlessly interested in what he says and what he thinks. And I guess what we're seeing is that you can do the same with Goodell. I'm not really, like, motivated to do the same with Goodell, but one could read Goodell in very different ways here, and yeah, that's cool. But
And I think that that is probably the point for Goodell. That like that's the whole point of his existence is that he should be a nondescript person that people don't care that much about, that and who knows, maybe all of these decisions were being made behind the scenes by groups of influential owners, and he's the guy. Like he clearly is the guy that the 32 owners are just like, you have to go in front of the press and eat the crap when we make a mistake, and you take it, and we'll pay you like $50 million a year for it. But go and take it, and he does that, and he's very good at that.
yep, yep. He's good at getting the hate of many teams and many fans, and looking a little uncomfortable, and maybe that's exactly what he's trying to do, right?
Right? Like he doesn't look like a guy in charge ever, right? Like ever.
No, no, it doesn't. Um, yeah. Good. Well, what should we do here? There are other questions that I could ask you, or we could get into anecdotes now. We let's see how are we doing on time? Yeah, do you want to go to anecdotes?
Sure.
Um,
Um, I think it's your turn to go first. I honestly don't remember.
I have no idea. So, well, yeah, I should keep better track of this. But mine's pretty short again. But it was just I was reminiscing about I think it was ninth or tenth grade when I took like you took Spanish, right?
Hmm.
But you I think started it earlier than I did somehow, and so you were in a
Yeah,
different
because I
Spanish
think you
class than I
took
was.
Greek when I started
Oh yeah,
Spanish.
yeah, yeah. That was useful. Um, uh, but yeah, so I was in like maybe it was tenth grade. I was in a Spanish class with like three other people, none of whom I really knew, and wasn't really close with in any way. Uh, and I don't want to talk badly about them. I didn't enjoy the class. Let's put it that way. I remember at one point uh, there was like a tic tac toe fad in that class, uh, which I found puzzling, and I still think is a little puzzling. I'm not sure what there is to tic tac. I mean, tic tac toe is it's one of the a lot of things in life, and as we saw, even like Roger Goodell or stuff, that the more you think about them and pay attention to them, the sort of more interesting or nuanced they become. I'm not sure tic tac toe though is one of those things. So I think it's a little odd that there was a little tic tac toe fad in in that class. But anyway, the memory I wanted to talk about was I think you were there to take pictures for newspaper. Was this right?
There's the
Um,
yearbook. I was in the yearbook
Yearbook.
class.
Okay, right. Yeah. I think you like were using an excuse just to see what my experience in the class was like, essentially. Uh, so you came in and sat in class one time, and then I had one of those erasers. Do you know those erasers that are like kind of trapezoid, not trapezoids, parallelograms, except in 3D. And I think you took a picture of me, like, I was holding. I was like, I wonder if I could wedge this between my teeth. uh, and it turns out like it just fits, I think, right? Like your mouth is not open as wide as you think it does, and you can get one of those like like parallelogram erasers right in there, but only just. And there's a picture of me somewhere doing this, and yeah, it's not the best picture of me, but that was one of the highlights of that class, believe it or not. That's it. That's the only thing that I wanted to get out of that story. But that was. I wish I could dig up that picture. I wonder where that would be.
Yeah, I wonder.
I'm kind of glad it's not
What's
on Facebook at least.
yeah, it's true. What's really funny is my anecdote is from that exact same experience. Not that same story, but it's from your Spanish class. Like I basically would. So I had journalism, or we called it journalism, the yearbook class, at that time, and people, it was a very popular class because you basically didn't do anything until you actually had to make the yearbook at the end of the year. Like, so most people would just like do nothing. So what I would do is I would pretend like I was coming to take pictures and just hang out in your Spanish class. And the cameras that we used for that, like, this is this is I guess the year 2000. This would be the 2005 2006 academic year, I think. Um, so I think this incident I'm thinking about happened in like the fall of 2005. So, but even in 2005, like good digital cameras existed, right? They used to take like sports photographs and stuff back then too that had like fairly good picture quality and everything. Well, we didn't have that kind of like we had the kind of camera where you like press it and it like takes a picture maybe like a second and a half after you click the shutter and it's blurry if it's a motion shot. So like I remember when we would have to try to take photos for like sports stuff that everything looked terrible. Like it was impossible to get a good sports photo. And anyway, with this picture, for whatever reason, I remember I was sitting in your class with this camera, and I remember the other. I remember the eraser in your mouth. The other one, I don't know why I remember it so strongly. Is this? There's a picture. It's just your hand with a pencil propped on the parallelogram eraser, and you're just like, but all you can see is like, and I remember like the teacher is trying to teach a class with just four people in it, and this is what I'm doing during that class. Like I'm like taking these pictures of like things that are clearly not ever going to be in the yearbook. The only reason I got away with this is because I think the teacher liked me a lot. She was also my Spanish teacher in my class, so. And I feel like I was one of the few people in the school that like tried hard in Spanish. But I just remember once I'm holding the camera, and one of the people in the class, I think he was the biggest tic-tac-toe enthusiast actually. He starts to sneeze, and I'm like, "Oh, I got this!" And like timing me pressing the shutter perfectly on this crappy camera. I couldn't get a single good picture, but I nailed this one. And like I pressed it early enough that I caught him perfectly mid sneeze. And he even like on this like really bad quality camera, like, you could see liquid like actually on him. It's like I tell you, a professional photographer couldn't have done it. Like that's the greatest stroke of luck. I hit it right then. And I remember the number of people I showed that picture to. I was so proud of that photo. That picture, I really wish I had saved.
Oh, that is fantastic. I forgot about that. You must have just been sitting there like,
I was like, oh my god, I can get this. He was about to sneak.
Oh, that's awesome. Wow. It's really weird that we both drew memories from that same class.
When you started, I was like, oh crap, I'm gonna have to think of another story.
No, I forgot about that one, but I kind of remember the picture actually. Yeah, I mean, I remember some of the facial expression, really.
Yeah, he was just like right, like mid sneeze. The great photo.
Uh, I think it's hard to appreciate nowadays when you take bursts of like, 20 photos in 1 second or whatever, that there was a time when you did have to, there was an art to timing it correctly, and getting something like that is, yeah, that's tough.
There's so much luck involved too with at least that camera, with how any action shot it felt like was blurry all the time. Just the fact that one, I mean, that one was still a little blurry too, but it was good enough.
Yeah. You had to be like almost, you probably had like you had your finger like on the trigger as it started to happen or whatever.
Oh yeah, like yeah, I think I had it around my neck, and so like I picked it up, and he definitely was still like rearing back for the sneeze when I pressed the shutter, and like it just happened to hit at the perfect time.
Rearing back. Oh, that's good. Anyway. Whew. Well, if we can find, man, if we should, we should find these pictures and post them somewhere. That would be.
Yeah, if we ever find these. Yeah.
Do you still have your yearbooks from CIA?
They're in Columbia, so they're at my parents' house. I think in my childhood bedroom. I think I have all of them.
Wow. I don't know if I have no idea where mine would be. We had a weird story about Kayla's yearbooks, which um, we lived in Durham, North Carolina for a while, and uh, ended up down here, and then someone oddly, like we moved out of that house we were renting in Durham, and someone oddly contacted me down here. It's like I got a box of your stuff or Kayla's stuff. Do you used to live at this address in Durham? I was like, yeah. And apparently they did the same thing. They I think went to UNC and they're now down here at UF. It's just so odd to get someone that I've never heard of. It's just like, oh yeah, I lived in that house too, and here's this box of your stuff from that house.
Wait, so they were here in Florida when they contacted you?
Yeah, they live in Gainesville. It's like it's
Whoa,
so
that's
strange.
strange.
Yeah.
Oh, I assume they like contacted you back when they found it. And how did they? Why did they bring it down here?
That's a good question. I don't know. I think they were thinking, this person like very nicely. They were thinking there's like some personal stuff in there, and maybe she wants it back. So I don't think
But
I
would
would have
they
done
have
that.
known that you were in Florida?
I don't remember the details. Yeah, yeah. I think they must have. They must have looked in the because there's some identifying information in there. So they must have.
Oh,
Oh, I
okay.
think they emailed Kayla. So they found her email in there, and then I don't remember. Turns out that they were in Gainesville. I don't know. I don't remember quite how this worked, but they live here now too. It's very weird.
Yeah, that is strange.
Um, okay. Well, that was
All
fun.
right. Yeah. Well, thanks a lot for listening, watching. We appreciate the support, and we will be back next week. I will be in St. Louis, but I will be podcasting from St. Louis, so we'll have a slightly different decor. I won't be looking out at New York City. Instead, I'll be looking straight into a wall. But I have like my setup here. I can see like I'm looking right out actually at the Hudson River and like up Manhattan. But
Hmm.
won't be the case. I think the lighting will be different. We will see. But we will have a podcast. I have to remember
I'll
to bring
still
my
be
stuff to
here.
St. Louis.
I'll be looking out at the same tree that's been here, unless it falls. I guess so sooner or later this tree will fall in the
It's
house.
true.
Um, okay. Well, yeah, and I would say don't try wedging that eraser in there because it could get stuck.
Yeah.
So I might try it again, but
And
don't try this at home.
don't. All right then. Until next time.
All right, bye bye.